What if your biggest mistake was being too good to the wrong people? You didn't see it that way. You thought that if you gave your all, your loyalty, your tenderness, your understanding, you'd get the same in return. You believed that if you were honest, people would value it. That if you were generous, life would play fair. But that's not how reality works. And deep down you know it. You've learned the hard way. With every betrayal you pretended to forgive, every time you broke yourself just to hold up someone who didn't deserve it, every kind word that was met with silence, judgment, or distance. You're not a bad person for believing otherwise. You were just human. You were playing by rules that don't exist. You thought being good would protect you, but you were too good for a world that isn't. And now you're empty. There's a part of you that's already noticed. A voice that's been growing louder lately. It tells you you're tired, that you can't keep giving everything to people who only show up when they need something, that you're done explaining your heart to those who only come to steal its warmth. That voice isn't anger. It's not hate. It's clarity. It's your instinct finally asking you to wake up. What if you dared to put yourself first? Not out of a bruised ego, but out of a sharp, clear mind. What if you stopped asking for permission just to exist? What if you finally chose you? People like to call that selfish, and they've sold you that word like it's a flaw. They told you it's wrong to think of yourself first, that you were too much, too difficult, that you needed to give more. But how much more? Until there's nothing left of you? Until your dignity has to beg for love? That's not kindness. That's self-abandonment. And the world doesn't reward those who abandon themselves. It devours them. You weren't born to be crushed under the weight of other people's expectations. You didn't come here to be a watered-down version of yourself so nobody feels uncomfortable. You're not obligated to carry guilt that isn't yours, or to hold up relationships that only survive because you're doing all the work. Healthy selfishness isn't cruelty. It's emotional survival. It's strategy. It's remembering your energy isn't infinite, and neither is your time. When Machiavelli wrote about power, he wasn't being cruel. He was being honest about how the world really works. He said people are fickle, ungrateful, opportunistic. And if you want to keep your freedom, your power, you can't act like you're surrounded by saints. He understood something you're just starting to see. Being too noble without armor doesn't make you virtuous, it makes you vulnerable. And no one respects someone who doesn't first respect themselves. You know this. You felt it when someone took advantage of your kindness. You saw it when you stayed silent just to avoid making waves, and swallowed the poison of that silence. You lived it when your empathy got turned against you. That's the truth. While you were trying to save them, they were busy draining you. How long are you going to keep making excuses for what can't be excused? How long will you keep being understanding toward the very things that break you? How long will you keep waiting for love from places that only offer convenience? This is the part where you look in the mirror and ask yourself, who's got my back when I give everything? And if you're being honest, the answer stings. No one. Because you've been so busy saving everyone else. Nobody ever had to learn how to save you. You thought giving everything would make you irreplaceable. But people don't stick around because of what you do. They stick around when you stop giving them the access they assumed they were entitled to. Being selfish, consciously, isn't about shutting the world out. It's about filtering. It's about choosing. It's about knowing who actually deserves access to your energy and who doesn't. It's about no longer explaining your pain to people who only listen out of curiosity or convenience. It's about not walking into battles that aren't yours. It's about refusing to beg for what you already deserve. Peace, respect, dignity. It's remembering that anyone who truly values you will never ask you to break yourself to please them. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to wake up. Stop romanticizing blind loyalty, constant sacrifice, and endless emotional availability. That's not love. That's conditioning. That's fear of being left behind if you stop giving. And if someone leaves because you stopped handing them your soul, then they were never with you. They were with the weak version of you who made them feel powerful. Today could be the day everything changes. Not because the world suddenly becomes fair, but because you decide to stop playing by the rules made for fools. Today, you get to choose to be selfish. Not with anger. With precision. With strategy. With power. You get to choose to care for yourself with the same fire you once used to care for everyone else. You get to become the guardian of your energy, the gatekeeper of your time, the judge of your connections. And yes, some people are going to be upset, because they got used to the submissive version of you, because your strength makes them uncomfortable, because your boundaries take away their perks. Let them go. You are not responsible for the emptiness they feel when they can no longer control you. You've been kind for too long. Now be fair to yourself. That's power too. That's love too. That's freedom too. And it all begins the moment you dare to say, even in silence, me first. You've spent most of your life believing that showing love meant sacrificing yourself. That the more you gave, the more you were worth. That the one who gave in the most, understood the most, forgave the most, was the one with the biggest heart. And maybe you did have that heart. But no one ever told you that even a big heart can quietly shatter. That not everything you give comes back. And some people, not only do they not know how to receive, they feed off your light without giving you a thing in return. That's where the exhaustion begins. Not the kind you feel in your body. A deeper one. The kind you can't see at first, but that creeps in when you no longer recognize yourself. When you realize your kindness was mistaken for weakness. Your patience for permission. When the people you protected the most are the same ones who vanished the moment you needed them. And something inside you changes. Not like a thunderclap. More like a slow closing. A door that shuts softly, but one you'll never open the same way again. Because what's born in that moment isn't hate. It's clarity. And that clarity shows you that being selfish isn't a betrayal of who you are. It's a return. A return to the version of you that existed before you bent yourself to fit. Before you edited your truth to be accepted. Before your worth was tied to how useful you were to others. This new kind of selfishness doesn't wear the face of revenge. It wears the face of self-respect. And suddenly, it all clicks. Protecting your peace isn't about closing your heart, it's about choosing who gets to see it. For a long time, you mistook love for constant availability. Always being there. Always saying yes. Always carrying the weight for everyone else. But no one can hold up the world forever without breaking. And when you finally broke, who was there for you? Who held your doubts, your darkest nights, your heavy silences? No one. Because most people were just used to taking, not giving. Expecting your understanding without ever wondering what was breaking you. That's when you learn there's an unwritten law in many relationships. The one who gives without limits becomes invisible. It's heartbreaking, but it's true. Your worth isn't always in what you give. Sometimes it's in what you hold back. In what you keep for yourself. In the boundaries you draw. Because when you give everything, there's nothing left to chase. And what's too easy is rarely valued. Machiavelli wasn't just talking about politics when he talked about power. He was talking about life. About relationships. About the unspoken games we all play, where every word, every gesture, every sacrifice is a move with consequences. And you've been playing too. Only, for too long, you didn't know the rules. You thought winning meant pleasing. That being loved meant being needed. That being chosen meant being endlessly available. And you lost. Not them. You lost yourself. But now, it's different. Now you're starting to see yourself. To hear your own voice. To understand that you can't keep saving people who don't want to be saved. Or waiting for reciprocity from those who only show up when it's convenient. You're tired of justifying yourself. Tired of explaining absences that weren't yours to explain. Tired of patching up connections that only you were keeping alive. And in that exhaustion, something powerful is born. Selfishness, when it's clear-eyed, isn't arrogance. It's discernment. It's emotional strategy. It's the art of guarding your energy like a wound that still hasn't healed. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to justify it. You just need to live it. Stop replying to messages that throw you off. Stop showing up to conversations where your presence is an afterthought. Stop explaining yourself to people who already made up their minds not to understand you. It's easy to say, love yourself, but love is action. It's uncomfortable choices. It's walking away from people who were only in your life because you didn't know how to say no. It's learning to look at yourself with the same tenderness you gave to everyone who broke you. It's making space for yourself without guilt. Guilt is the oldest weapon used to control those who feel. And you've been guilty of everything. Of not showing up when they expected. Of changing. Of drawing boundaries. Of saying, this isn't good for me anymore. But that's not guilt. That's growth. That's clarity. That's what happens when you're done living a life built for other people's comfort while you quietly wither inside. Maybe now the word selfish doesn't sound so ugly anymore. Maybe now it starts to sound like freedom, like peace, like healing, like coming home after years of living in bodies, spaces, and promises that were never really yours. Because what you're doing isn't shutting yourself off, it's reconnecting. It's refusing to be dragged anymore. It's honoring what you feel even if no one else understands it. It's allowing yourself to be inconvenient if it means being honest. Of course it'll hurt. Shedding an old skin always does. Letting go of versions of yourself that only knew how to please will break some ties. And some people will walk away. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you stopped doing what served them. The discomfort your awakening causes isn't your burden to carry. Your only real responsibility is not falling asleep again. And if you ever doubt it, if part of you wants to go back to being that quiet version of yourself, the one who waited, the one who always gave one more chance, remember this. No one's going to fight for you with the strength you'll find when you stop betraying yourself. No one's going to save you unless you decide you're worth saving. No one's going to give back what you lost in the name of love, but you can rebuild something even stronger with what you've learned from the pain. Being selfish doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you start feeling more clearly, more honestly, more freely. It means seeing your life with just enough coldness and just enough love to stop giving it away to those who don't know what to do with it. It means no longer explaining your worth and finally learning how to live in it. And all of this, though it might not look like it, is an act of love. The deepest kind, the hardest kind, the kind you've owed yourself for far too long. You don't owe anyone an apology for changing. Not for no longer being available all the time, not for taking longer to reply, not for finally seeing, with clearer eyes the things you used to quietly tolerate. You don't have to explain why you've grown quieter, more distant, more selective. You don't have to justify that you've learned to protect your peace. There's something profoundly dignified about stepping away without a scene, about letting go without noise, about closing chapters without needing permission. You know what hurt. You know exactly what you had to swallow just to keep others comfortable. You know how many times you betrayed yourself just to keep someone else around. How often you accepted less than you deserved just so you wouldn't come off as too much. But there's a line, and once it's crossed, there's no going back. Not because you're bitter, but because now, you see it all for what it really is. And once you see, you can't unsee. You can't keep pretending. You can't keep playing dumb. They'll call it selfishness, but you know it's not. You know that if you keep giving the way you used to, you'll lose yourself. That if you keep explaining yourself to someone who's already decided not to hear you, you'll wear yourself thin. That if you keep justifying what hurts you, you're validating it. And you're done with that. You're done justifying absences. Justifying coldness. Justifying disrespect that hides behind forgetfulness. You want peace. You want presence. You want connection that doesn't ask you to shrink just to be accepted. You've reached that point where losing people doesn't scare you. What scares you now is losing yourself again. And that changes everything. You're no longer available for people who only reach out when they need something. You don't drop everything for the ones who used to ignore you. You don't keep conversations alive where there's no real exchange. You're not moved by the need to be liked. You're moved by the need to stay true to who you are. It's not easy. There's still a part of you that wants to go back, that misses the comfort of what used to be, even if it hurt. A part that wonders if maybe, just maybe, you could have saved it all by being more patient, more flexible, more forgiving. But that part hasn't realized that it's not about saving anyone anymore. It's about not drowning yourself. And that takes a kind of courage that doesn't shout, but it's there. A quiet courage that shows up when you choose self-respect over nostalgia. Self-respect isn't cold. It's sacred. It's saying no without flinching. It's saying enough without crying. It's closing a door without hate. It's looking in the mirror and feeling proud that you picked your peace over your need. It's knowing you don't have to prove anything to anyone. That whoever couldn't see your worth when you gave everything doesn't deserve to see it now that you're finally giving it to yourself. Some people might say you've changed, that you're not the same, that you've hardened. But no, you didn't harden. You got clear. And clarity makes people uncomfortable. Because you used to bend. You used to be predictable, moldable, easy to guilt trip. And now, your presence. Your boundaries. Your choice. Not from anger, but from the deep understanding that your life belongs to you. That your time isn't currency to buy affection. That your love isn't a contract without terms. And the irony? The moment you choose yourself is when you actually become lovable. Because you're no longer performing. No longer trying to belong. No longer selling versions of yourself just to fit into spaces that don't hold you. You're just being. And that authenticity terrifies the people who fed off your insecurity. Because now they don't get to hurt you to feel powerful. They can't. They've lost access. Learning to be selfish, in this deeper sense, is an act of rebirth. It's reclaiming the parts of you you handed away for nothing. It's looking at your life like something rare, sacred, limited. It's no longer chasing those who wouldn't slow down for you. It's realizing most of the things you were starving for weren't love, they were hunger. Hunger for approval, for affection, for being seen. But hunger doesn't go away by feeding yourself to people who don't know how to nourish you. That kind of hunger quiets down in solitude, in stillness, in those private places where no one's clapping, but you're finally finding yourself. Where no one's holding you, but you're learning to hold your own weight. Where no one's watching, but the truth is undeniable. And in that truth, you finally see, your power was never in how much you gave. It was always in how true you stayed to yourself. Your strength wasn't the number of people around you. It was your ability to be alone without betraying your soul. Nobody taught you this. They taught you to please, to smile when it hurt, to say, "I'm fine," when you were barely holding on, to be low maintenance, to not take up space. That made you agreeable, but hollow. And now you're unlearning all of it. Now you're learning to be yourself without apologizing. To say what you really think, even if your voice shakes. To stay alone if it means not splitting yourself into pieces just to have company. Maybe you're still scared sometimes. That's okay. Being yourself always comes with a risk. The risk that they'll walk away. That they won't get it. That they won't choose you. But what's the point of being chosen for someone you're not? What's the point of being loved for a mask? What's the point of living if you're not living from your truth? You weren't born to please everyone. You weren't meant to be liked by as many people as possible. You're here to live honestly, to live fully, to live from the soul. And that won't always be comfortable. It won't always be welcomed. But it'll be real. And that's the only thing worth it. This kind of conscious selfishness isn't a wall. It's a boundary. It's the line that separates what builds you from what breaks you. It's how you tell the world, my peace is not up for negotiation. And when you draw that line, something shifts. The takers fade away. The ones who love you for real stick around. And most importantly, you finally stay with yourself. Because at the end of the day, the greatest act of love you'll ever give is to you. To that part of you that's been silently screaming for years, begging to be chosen. To be held. To be protected. To be seen, not as perfect, just as worthy. You first. Not out of pride. Out of necessity. You first. Not from ego. From healing. You first. Because if you don't choose you, no one else ever will, not truly. And maybe one day, when someone asks what changed, you won't have to explain anything. Your silence will say it all. Your steady gaze. Your absence in places where you once begged to belong. Your solid presence now whole. And in that moment, without a single word, they'll know. The person you used to be died the day you realized living for others isn't living. And the person you are now doesn't need to be understood, just honored. Because you finally understood something that changes everything. Your greatest power is choosing you.